Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our regular council meeting for Monday, July 15th, 2024. I will call the meeting to order at 5 p.m. First item on the agenda item 1.1, the land acknowledgement. The town of Coaldale acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot peoples of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot peoples past, present, and future, while recognizing their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The town of Coaldale is also home to the Métis District 1 foothills. Agenda item 1.2, conflict of interest declaration, pecuniary and non-pecuniary. Are there any in the room this afternoon? None declared. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2.1, acceptance of the agenda for our regular council meeting for July 15th, 2024. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion to adopt the regular council meeting agenda for July 15th, 2024 as presented? Councillor Pickering. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3.1, adoption of the previous minutes for June 27th, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe just a moment.
Just put your microphone on, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Just some changes there or amendments to throughout the agenda. We have Deputy Mayor Jordan Sailer voting on policies 7.0, 7.2, I should say. So that was after the swearing in of myself. And I think those were the ones that just needed to have changes. Was there another one? 9.1, 12.5, 14.0.
Thank you. Our municipal clerk will make those changes. Can I get someone to make a motion to adopt the minutes from June 27, 2024 as amended? Deputy Mayor Chapman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from July 2nd, 2024. Were there any errors or omissions in those minutes? Councillor Sailer.
Thank you. Those minutes also have me as Deputy Mayor instead of Councillor.
Thank you. Our municipal clerk will make those corrections. Any further errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I get someone to, Councillor Avery? Could I get someone to make a motion to adopt the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes from July 2nd, 2024 as amended? Councillor Beekman. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So coming up at 5:05, we have a public hearing, agenda item 5.1. And I'll ask our Director of Growth and Investment, Cameron Mills, find his seat. And so the public hearing will be regarding agenda item 5.1 to consider second and third reading of Land Use Amendment 889-P-04-24 regarding rezoning Urban Reserve to direct control. My name is Mayor Jack Van Rijn. I will be chairing this public hearing. All questions and comments shall be directed through myself. Addressed to the chair will be Mayor Van Rijn. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive public input on the Land Use Amendment 889-P-04-24, regarding rezoning Urban Reserve to direct control. The procedures for this public hearing are as follows. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is subject of this hearing. This is a formal hearing and is not a debate. Everyone wishing to speak who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak to the matter as called upon by myself, the chair. Each presenter must state his or her full name, their address, and their interest in the matter, including whether they are in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given the opportunity to speak. Presenters are to stay within a suggested 5-minute time limit on the presentation and are encouraged when speaking to keep the presentation to the point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers if possible. If new presentation materials are provided, you may be required to email a copy to our municipal clerk. At this time, I would like to ask our Director of Growth and Investment, Cameron Mills, to introduce the subject matter of this public hearing. Cameron, whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mayor Van Rijn, Council, for the opportunity to speak on this matter. As stated, the application before Council for consideration is to rezone lands legally described as northeast of 4, 9, 20 West 4 from its existing urban reserve zoning to direct control. These are lands serve as the existing site of the Elk Creek dairy operation and were annexed into the town as part of the annexation process that took place approximately 2018. With the current, the applicant is requesting to rezone to direct control. So for anyone in the gallery or at home that was looking to understand what that means, fundamentally speaking, a direct control district is a district which takes the development permit process typically administered by administration, takes it out of the hands of administration and moves it to the council chamber. And so it provides council with the opportunity to provide direct input on a development application, which is typically a more specific level of application than will typically appear before council. Who typically deal with matters like area structure plans and higher level planning matters. And so the applicant is interested in pursuing the rezoning in order to consider the modernization of the operation that currently exists, as well as establishing an eco-dairy, which is a sort of a tourism and education type component to that operation. And in order for them to do that, administration's determination has been that the first step required in this process would be to establish that direct control district so that council can review more detailed plans and ultimately determine if the applicant's proposal is in the best interest of the community. So the process of establishing a dairy is relatively complicated relative to other types of uses. So it fits under the description of what's known as a confined feeding operation. It's something that's regulated at the provincial level by the NRCB, which is the Natural Resource Conservation Board. And so in order to expand a dairy or to do sort of major investment in these types of things, the applicant needs to receive approval from that body. That body will not give the applicant approval without knowing that the municipality is in favor of this type of thing. Now, typically speaking, urban municipalities are not, like Coaldale, are not the sites of dairy operations. However, what is ultimately being considered is whether the modernization of the existing facility, along with the addition of the education and tourism component, makes this an attractive opportunity and a rather distinct and unique opportunity for the town to consider. Should be noted, oftentimes when we do rezoning to direct control, we'll consider the direct control district rezoning as well as the development permit application in lockstep. In this case, that's not what's happening. So approving the direct control district today, should council choose to do so, merely provides for the opportunity for consideration of a more detailed plan. Approval of the direct control zoning is to signal to the applicant that council is open to consideration of the proposal that the applicant is ultimately suggesting. Because without this zoning, realistically speaking, the answer is a clear no. And so by allowing for the direct control zoning to be put into place, what council is ultimately telling the applicant is that while this is a relatively unique and different proposal than what is typically standard, it's something that council is willing to consider, provided that at the point of the development permit where more detailed plans are put in place that and issues such as sort of noise abatement or smell or dust control or things like that are handled, that council is open to consideration of saying yes to that type of proposal. And so administration obviously does recognize that what we're talking about here today is not standard by any measure. We think that if it's going to be considered within our community, this is the appropriate way to do it. So again, the proposal that is requiring this direct control zoning is to establish a modernized dairy operation, including an eco dairy, and recognizing that this is a unique proposal, not suitable in any established land use district, and therefore by rezoning to direct control, the applicant will have the opportunity to bring a development proposal directly to council for ultimate approval in the coming months. We have held a public hearing today. In addition, we've provided an opportunity for feedback on this project through our Let's Connect Coaldale platform, which provides access to the bylaw, in addition to a link to a video highlighting a similar project in Abbotsford, as well as a link to the original presentation to council, which took place prior to first reading at April 22nd, 2024. Additionally, the project was featured in a report in the Sunny South News on May 9th. Following the report within the Sunny South News, council did receive an email from a reader. So council will recall that as well. Administratively, I did receive a number of phone calls, three phone calls to be specific, from folks that did learn about the project either through the Sunny South News or through social media or other platforms. They didn't provide formal communication with respect to the hearing. They were more sort of curious as to what was being proposed. So we had an opportunity to discuss it over a period of 5 minutes or so, and directed them to the Let's Connect Coaldale page for feedback should they choose to do so. At this time, however, we've received no formal commentary through that mechanism. Council, an email was also sent following circulation of the rezoning to neighboring landowners. That email was directed at one councillor in particular, so it's not clear to me that it necessarily represents formal consideration before council, though in that case, the issues being discussed had to do largely with ensuring that 30th Street is ultimately upgraded to accommodate traffic down the line. So with that, I'd invite the applicant to come before council and provide the opportunity for council to address any questions they might have to them.
Thank you. Brian, do you want to speak on behalf of this, or are you going to have Peter speak on it? Okay, thank you. Peter, when you get settled in, need you to turn your mic on when you're speaking. If you can introduce yourself and whether you're in favor or opposed for this applicant.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. My name is Peter Casarella. I run a company called Progressive West Consulting. I live in Lethbridge, Alberta at 70 Oxford Road West, and I am in support of the proposal. I have been engaged by Brian Stoutjike, the applicant, to help him navigate the NRCB approval process. Basically, Brian's looking at a lot of paperwork with a federal regulatory board in order to pursue the upgrade of his dairy operation. And I offered my services and was engaged by him to go down this pathway. And the first thing we encountered is that we could not do any upgrades or even apply to the NRCB unless the land on which the dairy is located was first zoned. Now, obviously, the applicant and his family have been on the land for several decades. There's 15 family members living on site, along with multiple employees who live there and employee housing on site there too, running the large operation that they have. They've put down roots, and as Coaldale expanded and moved your boundaries out, you encompassed the facility here. They want to continue to live and work on the farmstead and the homestead that they've built, where 15 family members now work, and upgrade their dairy to continue the operation for another generation. Of course, knowing that the town had expanded to encompass their operation, the proposal that they're pushing forward in the development plans, which will be presented to council, in my mind, are very friendly. Obviously, they want to continue to do what they're doing, but the largely open air facility they currently operate, for which there have been no smell complaints, they are now moving to a fully enclosed indoor facility where all the cattle live indoor. They currently have a chicken license for some 50,000 chickens on site, which they would like to surrender to the NRCB in favor for an expanded number of milking cows on site. The number of animals will only marginally increase on site, also going fully inside, but they will have only milking animals on site as opposed to right now where they have milking plus young and replacements. So they've been trying to push forward a presentation to council that's extremely friendly to the fact that they are now within an urban environment. And of course, they really want to lean heavily into the tourism angle, as is in the presentation before you. Something that's not a wish anymore, because Brian and Gideon just hosted 30 visitors from Nebraska who came through with Anderson Vacations. Jan Warren, who some of you might know from Ag and Forestry, took them around the region to the Lohi's feedlot up at Coyote Flats and to Brian's milking facility as well, and to Broxburn. And they gave them a thorough tour, and they were very impressed. So agri-food tourism is alive and growing in southern Alberta, and Brian and his family want to be part of that. I'm happy to answer any questions, and Brian, of course, is here to fill in the details that I don't personally know.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council for any questions, comments to our presenter. So if you could maybe just touch either yourself, Peter, or Cameron. So then the next steps, if this was to pass second and third reading, the process that they have to go through with the different provincial bodies, like what does that all entail and how long is that going to take?
I'm not entirely sure how long it takes, having never gone down this path with the NRCB personally myself. It is the federal ministry. It's likely to take months. And this gets us to the starting line. If you approve direct control here, obviously Brian would have to put his development plans in front of you for approval, but that allows us to apply to the NRCB now that you've given your blessing for that land use to see if they will approve the change in use case for the site itself. There's other considerations to be taken into account there, but honestly, if you've approved the use on the land and we cross all of our T's and dot our I's and grind our way through the red tape, I don't see why it wouldn't proceed.
Thank you. I'll open it up. Any more questions, comments? Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. Through to Peter, actually through to Brian. Brian, right now, it's how do you handle if you want to do any, say, renovations or refurbish or maintenance? Like, who do you have to get approval from on that?
My existing facility?
On your existing facility?
You're going to have to come and speak at the microphone, please.
So I guess I'm Brian Stouchdyke, and my address is 90060 30th Street. To improve or upgrade and maintain the facility that I have, I don't have to get approval for anything from anyone. It's if I change, say, a new barn or a bigger barn, or as long as I do whatever I do on my property in the existing facilities, I do not have to get any permission.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and maybe through to Cam, if I may. Moving to a direct control, obviously will change a few things, but at the same time, once the applicant starts doing some development, then the taxation on those lands also changes. Is that correct? So it goes from from what was traditionally an ag-based taxation system with the county would change ultimately.
Thank you. So it's not entirely my area of expertise. I probably wouldn't get too excited about the taxes. The only reason I say that is that there is so typically with all of the properties that have been annexed into the town, we have an agreement where they have the county tax rate until they undergo either subdivision or major sort of like significant development approval, and then they shift into the town's tax system, which is a very reasonable tax rate. However, is higher than the county's tax rate. Just a little shout out to everyone there. That being said, in this case, it's still an agricultural operation, which is governed completely differently. So if there were non-agricultural elements to it, there might be some tax implications, but I wouldn't expect anything significant.
My question was mainly just to create an awareness about that potential once that, because of annexation, we have
Right.
that agreement in
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Peter, did you cover off everything that you wanted to? Yes. Okay, thank you. So at this time, I'll ask council if they have sufficient information to make the decision to consider second and third reading of Land Use Amendment 889-P-04-24 regarding rezoning Urban Reserve to direct control. Thank you. I'll close the public hearing at 5:21 p.m. Moving on, we have another public hearing coming up at 6 p.m., but we'll move to business arising from the minutes. Agenda item 6.1, the Malloy Landing Northwest Area Structure Plan, the outline plan. Again, we have our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO Cameron Mills presenting.
Thank you very much. Lana, if you could load the PowerPoint presentation for me. And I'll ask Chet from Shift Real Estate to join me as well for the presentation. Sure, I know. Yeah. Thank you. So we have the opportunity today to present council with the outline plan for the Malloy Landing neighborhood, which is to say the new residential or largely residential development in the northwest portion of Coaldale surrounding our new high school and recreation center. And so this is something that has been in the works for some time now. As council will recall, we passed an area structure plan approximately 12 months ago, which is sort of the probably the most major planning component associated with bringing a new neighborhood to fruition. The outline plan is the next step in that process, and due to some timing constraints associated with construction of some infrastructure, we're doing this actually in lockstep with the rezoning process here today. So provide you with a bit of information here. So we're just going to talk briefly about the purpose of an outline plan, talk about the overall planning process, and take a look at the description of the proposal. So purpose of an outline plan coming from the Town of Coaldale's Municipal Development Plan. It's a non-statutory plan that describes the servicing method and proposed land use for an area in more detail than an ASP. So an ASP, area structure plan, is a statutory plan, which means it's something that's adopted by bylaw. There's a public hearing involved in it. It's advertised, things like that. An outline plan is a non-statutory plan. It's adopted by a simple resolution. An outline plan includes studies that ensure land is suitable for the intended use in terms of things like soils, servicing, drainage, transportation, etc. So examples of studies might include environmental impact assessments, transportation impact assessments, stormwater management analysis, that sort of thing. Largely technical documents that guide our engineering staff in terms of some of the more technical work that they do. It's also used for smaller areas of development, so it takes a look at individual stages and provides technical engineering details, and it needs to comply with the town plan as well as the relevant area structure plan. So in terms of the overall planning process, you begin with the area structure plan process, which is the overarching document that again was passed last summer. And then taking a look at here, we have an outline plan, and then we have a rezoning application for the first phase of the neighborhood, which is happening concurrently to this outline plan. Following that, there will be submission of a subdivision application, which we're expecting to take place at the August Municipal Planning Commission meeting for that, for that first phase to identify those first few lots where homes are gonna land. And then following that, there's the development permit application process, which will take place through the fall as homes begin to be constructed, and we take a look at the individual lots at that point. So within the plan, it includes technical studies, development concept, infrastructure servicing, and phasing. So taking a look at some of the technical studies, elements of the plan include technical analysis, including consideration of topography, existing on-site infrastructure, includes a traffic impact assessment, wetland inventory assessment, biophysical assessment, historical resources assessment, environmental impact analysis, and geotechnical assessment. Technical information includes appended studies, which may be added or amended following the plan at the staff level, which is a common practice in this field. Taking a look at the concept, generally speaking, this is the section of the plan that's most important for a non-technical review. So it's the portion of the plan that's the general public tends to be most concerned with. And this section clarifies and adds detail to concepts initially developed in the area structure plan to provide a greater sense of the overall look and feel of the neighborhood. In the case of the Malloy Landing, the neighborhood is designed around the two major existing features, so the Malloy wetlands and the new high school and recreation center. The development concept provides greater clarity on overall density within developed areas and includes specialized planning considerations within the R1A zoning to allow for a mix of lot sizes without requiring individual lots to be adjusted on a case-by-case basis. Lots will range in width between 40 and 50 feet, which is similar to what has previously been implemented in the Westgate subdivision, and will allow for a shortened frontage in instances where no front garages are present, so proposes reducing the front yard setback from 25 feet to 20 feet in these cases where there is no front garage parking. And this improves the usability of backyard spaces where they will also be including accommodation for parking. As well, the developers requested a side yard setback requirement of 4 feet on each side, which is in line with what is common in the city of Lethbridge currently in lots ranging in size from 32 to 40 feet. The density projections then meet the standards set forth in the municipal development plan and the area structure plan. So the municipal development plan calls for the minimum of 5 unit per acre with a goal of achieving 8 unit per acre in the town at some point. The proposal has within the neighborhood 261 single-family homes of various sizes, which represents a little bit over 50% of the projected total population count of 1,367 people. So what that means is the projection based on an assumption of 2.8 people per house, 1.8 people per sort of smaller apartment style structure, 2.8 person per townhome, assumes that with the building construction that's forecast within the outline plan at full build out, approximately 1,400 residents of Coaldale will live in this neighborhood. So 261 single-family homes, 116 units of street-oriented multifamily, and 153 units of comprehensively developed multifamily within the site. The plan also includes sections on servicing, so a more detailed view of proposed transportation networks, which is shown here, in line with the area structure plan and providing a modified grid design with collector and local roads, as well as inclusion of the trail to accommodate pedestrian and cycling traffic, water distribution, including a 300 millimeter, 300 meter would be huge. Feeder loop connecting the northern boundary of the plan area, tying into the southwest boundary of the plan area along 18th Avenue. So within our infrastructure master plan, that is the Northwest Coaldale feeder loop. So that's going to be included in the construction of this subdivision. Sanitary sewage collection, generally following the plan provided in the area structure plan, using a gravity-based system and extending a large diameter trunk extended west along 16th Avenue. So at the existing intersection of 26th Street and 16th Avenue, which exists today, extending that west to the western portion of the quarter section to allow for future tie-ins of neighborhoods to the west to allow for them to connect easily into that sewer system to provide for the accommodation of that size. Stormwater management, utilizing existing ditches and ponds while providing for additional holding capacity with ponds located in both the southeast and northwest portions of the plan area. So as part of the first phase, that in the southeastern portion, that pond there, which will connect to the existing I'm going to say stream that exists that'll be part of the park development as things develop out. And then an additional pond in the northwest area as part of the northern phase of the development that will ultimately tie in across the school and sports fields and tie into the existing Malloy pond infrastructure. Taking a look at phasing is shown here. Section 5 of the plan outlines the proposed phasing of the development with Phase 1A located in the northern portion of the lands south of 16th Avenue and east of 26th Street, inclusive of the stormwater pond. This also includes the full development of 16th Avenue to span the entire length of the quarter section and will allow for the tie-in of the utilities on lots of each size of those, though not necessarily the immediate subdivision of lots into those, just trying to make sure that when we're building infrastructure, we're doing it efficiently and only doing it once. This will provide for the immediate development of single-family dwellings on a range of lot sizes and accommodate a variety of price points with higher value properties bordering new and existing stormwater facilities. Phase 1A will also include extension of 16th Avenue, as mentioned, east to 30th Street. This includes the development of the lots north and south of the road, including the potential for development of the medium-density residential lands located along the western boundary of the plan area, as well as row or duplex-style lot development west of the school on the southern portion of 16th Avenue in the near term. Future development plans show the second phase will extend to the southern border of the lot along 18th Avenue east of 26th Street. The remainder of the southern portion of the development will follow, with the northern portion of the development being the final phase of the subdivision. We note that construction of the final phase shows inclusion of a planned road access, which will serve as an emergency access point for the additional overflow parking being developed as part of the school sports fields. The exact timing of these phases may be altered over time as market conditions change, but as things progress now, the plan is as shown here on the screen. So key considerations is to consider whether or not the plan satisfactorily integrates with the existing area structure plan, town plan, land use bylaw, and also to question if the plan adequately addresses the needs of the broader market, if it's economically viable, and does it meet broader regulatory requirements. Administration's position is that the plan provided will generally meet the expectation and vision outlined in the Northwest Area Structure Plan and Municipal Development Plan, will allow for the development to compete within the broader regional economy for housing, will meet the needs of the growing community in terms of providing a diversity of housing options, and will allow for a manageable regulatory process as individual lots are developed. And with that, provide council the opportunity to ask any questions of administration or the developer at this time.
Thank you, Cameron. Are there any questions for either? Councillor Reese.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, and through to Cameron. Thank you for your presentation. I'm just looking for a little bit of clarity on a minor inconsistency that I noticed, and I could be wrong about it. But on page 2 of our report, it says 16.6 units per hectare. And then if you read further down in the report on page 18, it says 22 units per net residential hectare. And I'm just wondering if you could just please clarify that for me for better understanding.
So that would be the difference between including the roads generally in the sort of denominator of the calculation. So the 22 units is per individual, only looking at the individual lots, whereas the 16 is looking at the broader scope of the land, if that makes sense.
Councillor Avery has a question.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Cam, for the presentation. I'm just curious with the 4-foot side setback? Has our fire department reviewed this and approved it? Because we are starting to get more lengthy response area at times.
Thank you. So we did have the opportunity to speak with Clayton, who is here today and can certainly address it. So the standard here, the neighborhood falls within the adequate response time, and in this case, the thought process was that the response time to this neighborhood is going to be shorter than the response time to Parkside, which already has the 4-foot restriction in place. So we have lots within both Westgate and Parkside that have the 4-foot setback. The 4-foot setback is what's common in other jurisdictions, and I'll let the developer speak to it, but realistically speaking, 4-foot setbacks are very common. So if you look at Lethbridge, for example, most of their neighborhoods have that level of setback. If you take a look at the Southbrook development in Lethbridge, for example, on the southeastern portion, on the east side of Fairmont there, with new houses going there. So the lots on 2-story homes there range in size from about 32-foot frontage to about 40-foot frontage, all with that 4-foot setback. And what we're talking about here is 40-foot plus lots in size. The one caveat would be that if a 4-foot setback is in place, what that fundamentally provides is for flexibility in building footprint for ultimately where it's located, though I would suggest that any waivers to that setback are therefore become unlikely, because that's where the fire code starts to come into effect, is that 4-foot setback requirement. So right now, it's not uncommon for us to see 4.5-foot setbacks or things like that within that 10% waiver. So that would fundamentally go away with this proposal.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments from any members of council? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Cam, for your report and presentation here this afternoon. 2 questions. Number one, with regards to stages 1, you've got stages 1 through, or phases, sorry, phases 1 through 3. Do they have to be developed in that particular order? Or say, for example, with seniors development, would they have to wait for a period of time till a certain phase is full before they can start? Or this doesn't necessarily have to go in that certain order?
Thank you. No, it doesn't. It doesn't necessarily have to go in this order. Certainly, the preference is to maintain this order, and certainly this order allows for sort of the simplest staging of the utilities and some of the technical considerations. But there's certainly, if an opportunity for a major seniors housing development comes forward, that has to happen within a tighter timeline, it's fairly simple for us to make those adjustments, and I'm sure the developer would be happy to do that, provided the market was there.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you. My second question is with regards to stormwater management, and you're very satisfied with the locations and the delivery and how that stormwater would be released in those certain areas, A, B, C, D, E, and F, I think is how it works.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we are. So we work closely with our engineering staff on those issues, and they're constantly reviewing the project in lockstep with myself. So yeah, no, we're confident that the stormwater management will be appropriate.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Pickering has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn, and through to Cam. Just to follow up on what Councillor Avery said. So when you said a 4-foot side setback, that's foundation, correct?
Yes.
But that means that with a 2-foot roof line, you're going to basically be within 2 feet of the property line all on both sides. So there's going to be 4 feet between houses.
There is the potential for that, certainly. Yeah.
And that's not going to create any problem, as they say, for fire code, eh?
That is the standard.
What is our normal up until now?
5 feet.
5 feet? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So we have the chief in the gallery. Clayton, would you like to make a comment on the setbacks, please?
Yes, so there are a few different setbacks. As Cam mentioned, traditionally we are a 5-foot setback. However, we do have a couple areas in town that are 4-foot setbacks already, with Westgate being one of them and Parkside being the other. So as far as our response times are for this area compared to Westgate, it's actually a little bit closer. It's a little bit closer to this new area than it is Westgate by about 1 minute for our response time calculations. So that's kind of where we consulted with Cam in regards to that in some of the areas in Coaldale that have had the 4-foot setback previously.
Thank you. Is there any follow-up questions for the chief? Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a question for the chief. Should we be maybe looking at a sprinkler bylaw as the town starts expanding past this point across 30th?
Across 30th, yeah, that's where our response times start to get longer, where you start to push that 10-minute response time once you would start calculating on the other side of 30th. So I think that would be something that would be good to look at for that other side.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Chet, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? If I could just get you to introduce yourself, please.
My name is Chet Oberkirsch, and I'm with Shift Real Estate Management, who is the developer for Malloy Landing. I guess just in general for us, with the outline plan, just to clarify a few of the previous questions with the phasing and the staging. That's one of the reasons we did break it up in so many, is that we do have that flexibility, that there's not a big, large area. So if we do have an opportunity, it's unattainable. We like to have a few smaller areas so we can jump and meet whatever the market demand is. One being, potentially seniors housing would be part of what we're after there. With regards to the setbacks, I guess the main reason we're looking for this is a lot of it is dealing with the different builders and what their requests have been. Just trying to really standardize and something that they want to be able to do, especially Lethbridge-based builders that want to come to Coaldale and potentially build in this development, is they just want to be able to take their current plans and basically plop them on a lot here. It would be the main reasoning for it. So that would be all for me.
Thank you. Any follow-up questions for either presenter? Thank you. So we have some decision options before us. We can approve the Malloy Landing Outline Plan as presented. We can approve it with amendments. We can table it for further information, or we can decline the outline plan. Does anybody care to sponsor one of those resolution options? Councillor Sailer.
Thank you. I would like to go with option 1, approve the Malloy Landing Outline Plan as presented.
Thank you. Are there any further questions, comments? There's a motion on the floor to go with option 1 to approve the Malloy Landing Outline Plan as presented. Seeing no more questions, comments, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 7.1, the borrowing bylaw 894-B-06-24 regarding second and third reading. We have our Chief Financial Officer and Deputy CAO, Kyle Beauchamp, presenting. Kyle, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks and good evening, Council. So yes, we have bylaw 894-B-06-2, presenting second and third reading for the water reservoir debenture bylaw. So to summarize, the bylaw was presented to Council for first reading, which was passed at the June 27th meeting. Following that, it was advertised for 2 consecutive weeks in accordance with standards or legislation under the MGA, to which no comments or feedback were received on that. Just to follow up on the project, total estimated cost is just over $13 million, with 4.47 million requested from debenture borrowing. The loan would not exceed a period of 15 years. And our current debt ceiling right now is $17.8 million. Our current debt level is 17.8 with a debt ceiling of approximately $32 million. That being said, I will pass this over to council for any questions on this.
Thank you. I'll open it up to members of council. Any questions, concerns? Deputy Mayor Chapman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I would move for second reading on this attached bylaw.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Chapman makes a motion that we approve second reading of borrowing bylaw 894-B-06-24. Are there any more questions, concerns? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. And then I'm looking for someone to entertain sponsoring third and final reading. Councillor Pickering makes a motion that council approve third and final reading of borrowing bylaw 894-B-06-24 regarding the water reservoir. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7.2, the Land Use Bylaw Amendment 895-P-06-24 regarding second and third reading, rezoning institutional/recreation to residential R1-A. Again, we have Cameron Mills, our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO presenting. Cam, whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
The public hearing for that will be at 6 o'clock.
Oh, my mistake. Sorry. So you're gonna stay up there anyways, Cam. Sure. We're gonna jump to 7.3, the Land Use Bylaw Rezoning Amendment 889-P-04-24 regarding second and third reading, and that's regarding Urban Reserve to direct control.
So we had the public hearing at 5:05, and I have no additional comments at this time, though, again, if any new questions have arisen, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for our presenter based on the public hearing we just had at 5:05? Seeing none, could I get someone to entertain, Councillor Reese?
Thank you, Mayor Van Rijn. I was going to make a motion for second reading of Land Use Bylaw Rezoning Amendment 889-P-04-24.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And someone to entertain sponsoring third and final reading of Land Use Bylaw Rezoning Amendment 889-P-04-24. Councillor Beekman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Then we're going to jump ahead to departmental reports, agenda item 9.1. We have our Protective Services Quarter 1 and 2 department report, and we have our Director of Protective Services and Fire Chief, Clayton Rutberg, presenting. Chief, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So just presenting the Quarter 1 and 2 Department Services report here tonight for Coaldale District Emergency Services and Coaldale District Municipal Enforcement. So looking at Coaldale and District Emergency Services first here, our call volume for the first and second quarter was at 326 calls for service, which is pretty average compared to last year, roughly where we were at this time in 2023. A bit of a heat map and just showing kind of where a lot of the concentration of our calls is. One of those is in town, depicting the whole town of Coaldale, and the other one kind of shows our area in Coaldale as well as Lethbridge County. Just kind of showing that Highway 3 corridor towards the city is more or less our busy area, although we do receive some calls elsewhere in there. A lot of it follows that Highway 3 corridor for our call volume within Lethbridge County. Call types and related info. So our medical calls, we had 184 medical calls this year up to the end of June, 46 false alarms, 40 motor vehicle collisions, 11 calls where we were canceled or arrived and didn't find anything. Not really a false alarm for the people that we arrived to, but maybe somebody calling something in, driving by, that type of thing. 9 outside fires, 9 public assists, 7 hazmat, 5 structure fires, 5 carbon monoxide calls, 4 controlled burns, 4 vehicle fires, 1 electrical hazard, and 1 other rescue. Of our medical calls, we did see 19 code red calls with no EMS units in Coaldale at the time. This is a little bit higher than last year, but significantly lower than what we've seen in 2022, where we've seen 80 code reds throughout 2022. Last year, we only had 22 code reds total throughout the year. So we are up a little bit this year. Our average response time for structure fires in town, I apologize, it cut off on the slide there, but it is 7 minutes and 19 seconds of our structure fires this year in the town of Coaldale, 2 of which were after hours and 1 during our business hours, but all kind of in that average. All of them were under 8 minutes this year. Our personnel call hours, we had 2,323 hours, 58% within Coaldale, 40% within Lethbridge County, and 2% mutual aid. One big thing that has kind of skewed that stat this year is our large fire that we had, which took up approximately 400 man hours. So that would have been a lot more of a balanced number if we hadn't had that large event in town, which is probably the largest event we've had in quite a few years for how much time we've put into that. Training hours, 1,712 training hours up till the end of quarter 2. We've seen 115 of our calls within Lethbridge County and 206 within Coaldale, and the rest mutual aid. Fire prevention. So we do have a little bit of a increase in our fire prevention right before schools kind of break for the summer. We had 4 fire hall tours, 3 public events that we attended as well, and then 3 smoke detector replacement checks and home fire inspections that we went to. And we completed 8 fire investigations. Fire inspection wise, we've had 184 done in the town of Coaldale and 22 to the end of June done in Lethbridge County. One of the initiatives we started this year was doing a lot more of our Lethbridge County inspections in the spring and summer. So as we get towards the end of August here, we'll see these 2 numbers kind of balance out with about 150 done in the county by the time we get through towards the end of September. Our quarter 1 training was a busy year. We had some pretty good training this year, with a big focus being on fireground survival, driving and pumping operations, a couple live fire tower evolutions to not only keep our skills up for our members, but to evaluate our recruit class, which you'll see on the next slide, engine and ladder company skills, our live fire props that we do have over at our training facility, our vehicle and our gas props. motor vehicle extrication, medical first responder training, rural firefighting operations, and wildland or grassland firefighting. Kind of wrapping up our training, we did have our recruit training. We had a recruit class of 8 complete this spring. So these recruits are now on the floor and active. And as a side note, we had 3 of these recruits that graduated from previous Kate Andrews Fire Academy classes as well. Our disaster and emergency management, we had a few events throughout the beginning of this year. We had our annual Disasters Corner, which was a better attendance this year than we've had in previous years. It seems to have grown each year. We also had 2 emergency advisory committee meetings and then our tabletops associated with the summer games to help prepare our emergency management team for anything that might happen during that time as well. Shifting gears a little bit into the municipal enforcement. Unfortunately, Mark Anderson's on vacation tonight as well, so I'm presenting both components. But occurrence reports for this year, we've had 324, which is broken down into 1 federal, 195 municipal, and 128 provincial. Some of our major focus areas out of those issues have been our community standards, which you guys are well aware of. This encompasses stuff like our empty lots, weed complaints, those types of things. Where we've had 112 that we've dealt with in quarter 1 and 2. And this year is our first year kind of dealing with our empty lots in the manner that we have, where we proactively get our order placed on them and then deal with them throughout the summer. So it has led to us doing it a little bit quicker, but 112 of those this year that we've dealt with. The other large aspect of our complaints has been animal control. We've had 62 dog-related complaints with 18 dogs that were placed in new homes through various organizations or us being able to find them somewhere to go. Just an update on photo radar. So we did have 10 locations enforced throughout quarter 1, quarter 2, with almost 3,000 tickets handed out. The average speed over is 19 kilometers an hour, with the average penalty being $166.63. A few different events that our municipal enforcement team participated in. We did our mock MVC this year at Kate Andrews. So our municipal enforcement team was a big organizer of that, along with the RCMP. And then we've had a few bike rodeos, not this year in Coaldale. We did our Coaldale ones last year, so reciprocating to everybody that came here and helped us put the bike rodeos on here last year. And that concludes my quarter 1, quarter 2 report.
Thank you. Councillor Avery has a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, 2 questions. First one, with the code reds and medical calls seem to be going up. Have they started using our ambulances now, again, backfilling into the city? Because I'm seeing a lot more of the city units coming out this way and going back into the city. So are we now starting to get pulled into the city? Are we doing transfers? Why are these numbers going up? Is it something council should be concerned of? And should we be advocating again with the province?
Our numbers have gone up. Again, they are, last year was the best we've ever seen. I think was really related to the changes that were made by EMS going to 12s, a lot less timing out. I think we've seen a lot of Lethbridge coming out here this year. So it would be something for us to continue to look into of why are we starting to trend back in that area where we are going up. We could probably see it hitting somewhere around that 40 this year, I'm guessing, which would be kind of half of our worst year yet, but still trending back up, which I think is due to that busyness.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is on the photo radar revenue. It says a revenue of $505,000 That's not what the town gets, though, correct? We get
Yeah, that's
40% of that?
yeah, it's the split.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments for our presenter? Councillor Beekman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Clayton, for your presentation. I noticed we're almost 2-to-1 for calls for Coaldale to the county, and when I was looking into previous updates, normally the county outweighs us. Does that have to do with that major event here in Coaldale, or?
Yeah, so normally we do more call volume in town and less call volume in the county, but usually more hours in the county than in town. So the hours definitely for sure this year is due to that one large event. Okay. If we were to take that out and look at it, it would balance out. Or if the county does have a larger event, we haven't had a large event this year yet in the county. When we do see that happen, our hours shoot up there as well.
Okay, that explains the imbalance.
Yeah. Yeah, there was almost 400 associated with that one event.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments for our presenter? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the Protective Services Quarter 2 and Quarter 3 report as information? Councillor Beekman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Clayton. Please pass on our appreciation to your members. Moving on to information items. 12.1, we have the Coaldale Public Library newsletter and calendar for July and August 2024. Any questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, we'll go on to agenda item 12.2, the pause meeting minutes for June 12, 2024. Any questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, could I get someone to make a motion that council receive the Coaldale Public Library and the pause meeting minutes as information? Councillor Sailer makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We are going to ask our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO, Cameron Mills, come up to the presenters table, please. So we're going to back up to agenda item 5.2 regarding Land Use Bylaw Amendment 895-P-06-24 regarding rezoning institutional recreation to residential R1A. Cameron, if you would please.
Thank you. So first reading of the bylaw was passed at the June 27th, 2024 regular meeting of council. We received an application to rezone a portion of land lying within the Northwest Area Structure Plan from institutional recreational to R1A. Approval of the application will support development of a portion, I should say, of Phase 1 of the residential lands within the Northwest Area Structure Plan, or Malloy Landing. This is that portion lying directly south of 16th Avenue and directly east of 26th Street. First reading of the bylaw was presented in lockstep with presentation of the outline, second and third reading of the bylaw, I should say, as presented in lockstep with the outline plan, which was presented earlier in this meeting. The plan calls for the R1A designation across the entire site for Phase 1 east of 26th Street and south of 16th Avenue. The developer's preference is to use this as a blanket zoning, even though some of the lots created in the subdivision are smaller than the 50-foot minimum width in the land use bylaw. So that requirement is now covered by the outline plan, which was adopted earlier this evening. The requested variances, as mentioned, are highlighted in the outline plan. So provided with you is a map showing the area. So recall that Phase 1A includes both this section as well as the section to the west of 26th Street running along 16th Avenue. We'll come back with a rezoning hearing for those portions of Phase 1A likely in the fall. Rezoning of this portion allows for the developer to begin potentially a more immediate construction of these lots in line with the infrastructure being put in ideally this summer. And so we wanted to move forward with this quickly, and then we'll move forward with the rest of Phase 1A likely in the coming months, which will include potentially some multifamily development in the western portion of the plan area, as again outlined previously in our outline plan discussions. With that, happy to respond to any questions that council might have with the proposal.
Thank you. I'll open up to members of council. Any questions for our presenter? Deputy Mayor Chapman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through to Cam. Just a kind of an affirmation that the lot sizes again won't be anything less than anything smaller than 40 feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Just so that I know that community members are rather concerned again too that we have a development that won't replicate previous developments that had small lot sizes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments? Chet, do you have anything to add to this one? Thank you. So I'll ask now if council has sufficient information to make a decision to consider second and third reading of the Land Use Amendment 895-P-06-24 regarding rezoning institutional/recreation to residential R1A. Thank you. I'll declare the public hearing closed at 6:06 p.m. And for our municipal clerk, I didn't have my mic turned on quick enough. I called the public hearing to order at 6:02 p.m. Moving on to agenda item 7.2. Again, we have our Director of Growth and Investment and Deputy CAO Cameron Mills presenting on the Land Use Bylaw Amendment 895-P-0624 regarding second and third readings that Cameron just spoke to. Any further questions for our presenter on that item? Seeing none, could I get someone to consider providing second reading? Deputy Mayor Chapman makes that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And for third reading. Councillor Avery makes a motion to provide third reading of Land Use Bylaw Amendment 895-P-06-24. Any further questions, comments on that one? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Chet. So that concludes the open portion of our meeting. I will require a motion that council move into closed session at 6:07 p.m. in accordance with section 197-4-B of the Municipal Government Act to discuss matters exempt from disclosure for items 13.1, 13.2, subject to section 25, economic and other interests of the public body. Items 13.2, 13.5, subject to section 16, business interests of a third party. Item 13.3, 13.4, subject to section 21, intergovernmental relations. Item 13.3, subject to section 24, advice from officials. And finally, item 13.5, subject to section 17, personal privacy. Who cares to make that motion? Councillor Reese. Thank you. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We will take a 5-minute break.